Welcome to the Dream, Plan, Start, Grow podcast hosted by Allison Turner. In each episode, we interview real, everyday entrepreneurs to learn how they got their start, what challenges they faced and overcame when starting the business, and what successes each has had. Welcome to the Dream, Plan, Start, Grow podcast. My name is Allison Turner. I am your host. I started this podcast really to demystify what it takes to become an entrepreneur. You will see a lot of stuff out there on social media, a lot of sponsored ads of buy my program and you'll make $1 million in 12 months, or sometimes it's less than 12 months. And occasionally, on rare occasion, that can happen, but very rarely will you see some plan that you purchase, unless it's illegal, all of a sudden spike you to a millionaire in less than 12 months, unless you have some skill like being able to code an app or something to that degree that you are able to do. So in this podcast, I'm interviewing different entrepreneurs from different genres and really how they got their start. So today I have with me Nilsa McKinney, who is an interior designer and owns her own company. So how long have you done that? Like, when did you start being an interior designer?
So I started being an interior designer right out of college. Oh. And I worked for this lady who was just amazing. And I started with her as her receptionist. And she saw I took an interest. I always stayed late. I always was in early. And I wanted to put files away. And back then we didn't have, I'm kind of giving my age away, of course. Back then we didn't have the computer systems that we have now. Right. Everything was in filing cabinets, and all our reps were the catalogs, everything was in filing cabinets. And those had to be revised every 6 months. Wow. So that we could stay current with our fabric samples and things like that. So I offered to do that, even though that was assigned for the designers to do. And she had a team of maybe 6 or 7 designers at the time. And I wanted to do it, and I'd offered to do it. And it was the best thing I could have done back then, because I learned all about reps and their products and what got discontinued quicker, what didn't. So I did that, while I was at the end of my high school with her. And then part of my college, I would come in the summers and I'd work, and then she'd send me little assignments from time to time. And then finally, when I went to school and came back with some skill sets, she said, okay, it's time. And I was like, time for what? She goes, you're going to be my assistant. Oh. So she wanted me to learn from her and nobody else. And that was the greatest blessing that she could have done for me. And I really attribute the foundation of everything I learned from her. So that's how I got started.
And do you have to have a certification to be an interior designer? I don't know what.
Right. Okay. So when I came out of college, I had all the skill sets. And back then we didn't have the CAD on the computer or anything. Everything was a drafting board.
Right.
So
all paper.
I was very lucky that my drawing skills were very, very good. And I was very fast on the drawing board. And I loved it. I loved doing it. So she would, we'd go out, measure a job, and then it was my responsibility to put on paper what we measured. Okay. And the quicker I could get that done, the quicker she could send out different proposals and estimates, and then we could get the job running. So that was my greatest skill set, was that. But then she took me on job sites to meet the people, and also to interact with the subcontractors, which some designers, it's a little difficult. To me, I think the success of an interior designer is getting to know your customer, and making sure you're giving them what's going to fit them, not what is current in style in the present, but what's going to fit them and their lifestyle. And also having a relationship with your subcontractors, because you're only as good as they are.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, I have employees and I have some subcontractors, so absolutely. I mean, you have to treat them the same as the employees and everyone
Very
else,
true. Very
because
true.
otherwise you may have a problem if they get mad and like, I quit.
Yeah. I think that to this day, that is what I'm most proud of, is the relationships that I have fostered through the years. And the majority of the subcontractors that I have, I've had them for 10 plus years.
Wow.
Same people.
That's great.
And because I count on them, and I make sure that they're taken care of. And my clients see how I am with my subcontractors, and they tell me, my gosh, you treat them so well. I say, I'm only as good as they are.
Right.
I can't do what they're doing. I can only facilitate a schedule and a design, and we hope for the best.
And they have to implement what you're handing to them.
They do. Yeah.
So it sounds like mentorship early on in your career was key.
Yeah.
I know that's one of the things that we talk about a lot in this podcast from, different people, is people that either mentored them early on or, having a business coach at some point.
Absolutely.
Or, even accountability partner, because even owning a business on your own, if it's just you alone as a solopreneur, or even when you start the one person business, having that accountability and
very true.
And always reaching out to other people and,
Very, very
and
true.
having that, kind of team mentality without actually having the team.
Yeah, and I think the wiser you are in understanding what your strengths are going into a business that you want to succeed, the better you're going to be for it in the long run.
Right.
A lot of times I think sometimes some designers, they try to do everything. They try to do the business side of it and do the design side of it and manage an HR within the company, and it's a lot. And really, at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to touch all those elements as strongly as somebody that's in it every minute of the day. And as the quicker you understand that, you can facilitate how they address things for you and keep them accountable as you go. And the way I do it with the crew that I have is we meet on Mondays and we discuss the schedules for the week and what needs to be accomplished by the end of the week. If by Wednesday you're unsure that you're going to be able to meet your goals by Friday, come to me, tell me, and together we'll get you to your goals on Friday. But if you don't come to me on Wednesday and Friday, because then on Fridays we have meetings to see where we were, and we have rollovers that you could have avoided by Wednesday.
Yep.
Then we have a chit chat. So that's
right.
So you want to guide everybody through it, but empowering everybody to do their best and letting them know that you trust their skill sets is so important. And that's what my mentor did to me. Yeah. She threw me out there to the fire and she said, okay, go for it. And I did. But if I was not sure of something, I had the confidence to go to her and say, just tell me and I'll do the rest. But I need this. I don't know this. And she really appreciated me being forthright with that information.
Yeah. And but it sounds like the communication piece
very
is
important.
So your mentor had that for you, which then kind of role modeled it for you to have it with your staff as well. Because I think that's a critical piece, because
it is very critical.
And the end game is, keeping the client happy, whoever that is, whether it's an interior designer or anyone else. So having that communication where, if someone's behind for whatever reason or can't complete it, that you're aware and figure out how to either help them get to that point, or if it's something unexpected, because I know
Very
I'm
true.
sure you've had some, delays in shipping stuff and sourcing materials now with everything that's
Definitely.
going on.
Definitely.
So, making sure the end client knows kind of a realistic timeline if things get delayed.
You have to be real with your clients. That's,
Right.
I have the clients I have, and some of them I've had for 20 plus years. Every time they purchase a property, they're sending me floor plans, and it's like, I'm like, well, didn't we just finish one in this place? Or, oh, fell in love with this one. We're selling that one. We're going to get this one. And they do have multiple properties.
Right.
So and thankfully, most of them, they keep their same palette. So we just roll over a palette, just change a couple things for them. But to your point, you definitely need to have communication with your staff, with the subs on that are actually producing, the cabinet makers as they're, doing their thing. You want to make sure that you stop and you go to the shop and you see what they're doing and you praise them for, oh my gosh, that's spot on. Yeah. And if there's something wrong, gently say, okay, let's try to work it out this way. Once again, you have to keep that human factor in place with your subs, and I do. And that's very important, and I appreciate their skill sets because obviously I can't do anything without them.
Yeah. So it sounds like your clients are kind of all over the world, or
They
United
are
States,
all over.
or
They're all over the globe.
Okay.
We finished one in Virgin Gorda not too long ago, and that same client has properties here in Palm Beach and Delray and other properties up north in Philadelphia. So I get the floor plans. I go out and I do my field stuff, and then the guys here, we make everything. And being honest with your client, especially now, as you noted, with our schedules, back orders. And the last couple of years has been a little tough, but there's ways to get around, if a client wants a specific brand, a specific this, fine, I can get that for you, but it's going to take 18 months to get, because it's in Europe and this is what we're behind and this is blah, blah, blah. And if you want to wait, perfect. But in the meantime, since you do need something, let me offer you this. We can get this at this price. And then when this other piece comes in, I'll find a buyer for the piece that we have in here. So you find a way to make your customer happy, fulfill their need, and still, you have to get creative. And to me, that's what I love about this business is every time I get a new client or I get a new set of plans from an old client, I get to reinvent something. And to me, that's exciting.
Yeah, well, it keeps it fresh and
It does.
real. And so you're not just putting the same plans in a different space, which might get a little boring after a while.
It can get boring. And the other thing I do enjoy is I have interns that we have come in, and I just love seeing the excitement in their eyes when they come in and they want to learn. Or, you get those that come in, think they know everything, and you say, well, let me just send them out to the job site real quick. And they come back like, oh my gosh.
I know nothing.
But it's those moments that you learn the most.
Yeah.
And then when they're done with the internship, I get letters from them saying, oh, I did this. I'm working for this person now. And I remember this. I had this situation. And sometimes they'll be on a job site and send me a photo and say, what should I do here? I don't want to tell my boss. So it's, you create those relationships. To me, I just love being able to foster those relationships and making them grow.
So those interns from like local colleges?
Local colleges or some
design schools.
Some that may be friends of my daughter or something that, went away to school and just say, I just want to be with you for a summer. I'm like, fine, let's do it, And they learn and then they go back to school and they get their skill sets and then they, in their process of applying for jobs, they'll, okay, what do I say? How do I do this? But I love doing that. Yeah.
Now, when did you actually start your own company?
So I've been in business now for about 32 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 32 years. And that was a big leap for me because my mentor, I was working for her, and I was doing all the projects, and I was just, it was perfect for me. And then unfortunately she got sick and couldn't really, and I did a lot while she wasn't well. And she was, okay, you can do this, you can take this, and then she was the one that pushed me. She said, it's time. And you know, that's a true mentor when they want you to continue growing.
Right.
And so she kind of tucked me out of the nest and she said, it's time. And and so I did it. And unfortunately, she had passed away several years after I had started. But she knew it was time for me. And she says, you're ready. You just do it. I'm like, but what? What about this? And what about that? Wait, I don't know how to do this. She goes, you'll learn. And so, and I did.
So were there moments when you first started the business, like that were kind of scary to you? I mean, because obviously working for someone, I always find, you know, even though it sounds like your mentor had you in a lot of different areas of the business, but you're still within kind of a box of like, here's your job description.
Exactly.
And when you own a company, now you're the salesperson, and now you're the marketer, you're the accountant, you're the, could be, sometimes you're the web designer, sometimes, you know, and that may not have impacted you 32 years ago, but, you know, when you first start a company, there's a lot of pieces, unless you have a big budget to start it, that aren't necessarily taken care of for you.
Absolutely. And you're so right. Initially, you know, I had a good foundation of clients. And they were still the demanding clients that I had before with my mentor. And some of them stayed with me, and I took care of them and tried to take care of them the way she did. There was not one detail down to, you know, they would come, we do a full setup on a house, which entailed having the chef send us the menu for groceries prior to the client's arrival. The maids, you know, had to have certain uniforms on. I mean, these are details.
Full service.
I mean, full service. And and we'd make sure we meet with the chef. The chef would always arrive, you know, maybe 2 days before the client would. And all staff would go through drills, you know, 24 to 48 hours before the client would arrive. And so we'd make sure all these details were in place. And I continued that with some of my clients. So if at any time, and I did have one situation, and it was one of those aha moments you have when you start your own business and you realize this is going to succeed because of me, and it can fail because of me. And we had a big setup, and back then in Boca West, they had big houses back then when they first started. They still do. But back then, and that's when Boca West started. And I had this huge mansion that we were finishing up. And we were down to like 3 o'clock in the morning. Clients were going to be arriving at 10 a.m. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and my drapery person's still putting drapes up, and we're just cleaning up. And so I had this big U-Haul truck and all the extra trash, everything going in the U-Haul. And so the guy that I had set up to drive the U-Haul to the dumpster and empty it out and all that, well, he decided that he wasn't going to stay, and he left.
He was tired.
He was tired. Yeah, he was tired. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to get this U-Haul out. Everybody went home. The place looked spectacular. So now I am driving a U-Haul truck at 3:30 in the morning, and I am backing up to our dumpster, and I am emptying out for almost an hour a U-Haul into our dumpster. And these are, you know, wrappings from furniture, lamps, you name it. It was just all the wrapping trash that we had. And when I got done emptying out that dumpster, I sat on the edge. I mean, I was crying as I'm emptying out. I'm young and I'm emptying out this. I'm crying. I'm like, I'm the owner. What am I doing? It was one of those moments that I'll never forget. And it reminds me that you do what you have to do to get
Right.
the job done. And that was one of those moments. And I got done and I sat on the edge of the U-Haul. And I remember thinking, heck, this is crazy, you know? But yet I learned a lot. I learned a lot that night.
Well, I think when you're willing to do any job in your business, so if you see the trash can full, instead of waiting for, if you have a janitor that comes in, instead of waiting for the cleaning crew, empty it yourself. I mean, it doesn't have to be a specific person. It's really how you mentor everyone in your company.
Yeah. Well, we had in the office, we had a going joke that, because we are always there to greet our clients when they come in. And in case they have any questions about anything, but everything has to be spot on,
Right.
And usually, like you just said, if something's out of whack, you take care of it, because 9 times out of 10, we're literally down to the wire of running to the front door, shaking off and, hi, how are you? Welcome to your home,
Like you've just been relaxing.
And we have this running joke that, we smell more like Pine Sol than our perfumes by the time we get to the front door, because you just do what you have to do to make it right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's so true. I'm going to shift gears for a minute.
Sure.
So I know that Frank McKinney, who we had on a couple weeks ago or a few episodes ago, is your husband, he creates these oceanfront masterpieces, as he likes to call them, and you are the interior designer within those.
He's so lucky.
And he knows that.
Yeah.
How is it working with your husband on a project like that? Because obviously it gives you a lot of realm for creativity, and how much control do you have versus what he may see?
Yeah. I think the reason we've been so successful, Allison, is because we know our roles. It's when you start to overlap into the other person's role that it gets a little tricky. And not to say that didn't happen, but it was corrected right away.
Okay.
And I think, there are certain things where we would discuss. We'd have our staff meetings with our contractors. We'd be in the trailer meeting with everybody. And, if something I felt was going to be far outside of the budget realm of what was presented originally, I will, because I'm always the one pulling the reins back, and he's like, no, we got to go for it. We have to go for it. And I will defer if I really feel it's going to be a selling item that will trigger a sale. Because you have to think it's different when you're trying to please a client, but when you're doing a spec home, you have to really use a lot of psychology to say, okay, what's going to trigger a client to want this house?
Right.
And we want the customer to drive through the driveway, be infatuated with the house, get through, the front door and be in love. And then we want them to, when they're done looking at the house, want to marry it, so buy it.
Right.
So we always say that's what we want. So what key elements are going to do that in a house, and how much am I going to really have to pay to get that warm fuzzy for the client? So that's probably where we butt heads most, because I would probably not want to spend something that he would want to spend. And 9 times out of 10, we always meet in the middle. And he has a saying, he says that, to get the diamond, you have to go through a little roughing of the rock. And really, truly, that's true in our case. But I would have to say, respecting your partner, respecting their skill sets, and knowing that they're good at what they do. And he does the same for me. So I think that is why we've had such a great working relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I know as, husband and wife, it's not necessarily easy to work together.
Yeah. It can be tricky.
Together,
It can be tricky.
And you have to figure out where those boundaries are when you're at home.
Sure.
And, at work, and, trying not to marry the two of them, which is not always easy.
Well, I think it wasn't until after we had our daughter, Laura, who's now 23, that we started implementing rules. And, whereas when he met me, I was in my office until 10 o'clock at night, and I was so happy being in my office working because I was constantly trying to think of ways to make it better and grow it and all those wonderful things and reaching out to people that I know would be able to help me get to that next level. So my wheels were always turning. And then when I met him, his wheels are turning. They turn real fast from 9 to 5. But then he goes to bed early. And I'm a night owl. He's not. So I'm always up late, kind of, that's my best time to get creative. But when we got Laura and had her, it changed because then we wanted time with her. We wanted her to feel that there were certain elements of the day that were all her. And that was dinner time. And so rules were after you got home from work had to wait until the next day.
Okay.
And it was time to spend with Laura, hear about Laura's day, and engage with her. And that became a dinner time. We'd sit at the dinner table for hours, just talking. We'd eat. And, food in our home it's love. And so when you sit down at the table, and even to this day when her friends come in town, and of course, everybody has to come over to our house, and I cook, and the table is full of all her friends. And we hear about the boyfriends, we hear about the jobs, we hear about the interviews, we hear about everything. And Frank sits on one end of the table, I sit on the other, and all the girls sit on the dining room table, and we hear about everything. So, and it's ours. So it's great.
No, that's great. I mean, I think making time for family, you have to make time for the family plus, because I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs, you start a company and say you're not working together.
Yeah.
And the other partner, spouse doesn't understand what it takes to actually build a company.
Yes, that's true.
And the hours it takes. And so they start resenting it.
Yes, very true.
As well. And I think that's one of those key things. And then sometimes when you work together, it can lead to different conflicts.
Yeah.
If you don't have that mutual respect and
communication.
If
you can't talk to your partner about something that is bothering you or something that you're concerned about, you have to revisit the relationship. And that's just the relationship basic 101. Right. Then you throw in the work factor, which brings in the stress of money and all those other things. Then if you're unable to connect there, it's going to be difficult.
Right.
It really is.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that's so true. And
it is very true.
Yeah. And I think having a child brings a whole different ball game into it as well. Because now it's making sure you have time as that family union, like you just said.
Yeah.
How do you feel you specifically were able to mentor Laura, your daughter, while she was growing up?
Well, right off the bat, right when she was 2 weeks early. And of course, me being a typical Virgo, I had everything planned down to the wire. Literally, the week before she was due, I had a full setup. And so now she comes. She was born on a Monday, and I left the hospital on a Wednesday, and I was on the back of a big truck, yelling where furniture was going. So literally at the end of the week, I had her. And then I realized I need my child. I want to be with her. I don't want to miss anything. And I had a young lady that was helping me at home with her. And I called my office that day and I said, okay, this file, that file, I need this, I need all this stuff. I'm setting an office up in my back cottage. Allison, to this day, I still have that office in my back cottage. So I go back and forth. But I wanted to be close to Laura. So I literally, the following week, I set up a home office. I didn't have one before.
Okay.
I set up a home office and had everybody bringing stuff to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important, especially when you recognize it early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you provide that, background and that, loving relationship with your daughter.
Yeah. Well, I had her when I was almost 37, so I was a little older. And I think for me, that worked well. Not that it would work well for someone else, but for me, it worked well because I was able to work from home. I was able to still be successful. And I was determined to have my cake and eat it too. And so many people would tell me, you have to choose.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh, no. No.
That's not going to work.
No, I don't choose. No. And so I decided to make it work one way or another. And to this day, it's been very successful. And I think probably the most influence I had on Laura is that she saw me working. Okay. She saw how I treated the staff. She saw how I worked under duress on setups. Because I'd take her, and then when I traveled, she came with me. Okay. And, I had someone helping me for times that I couldn't be with her all the time. Mm-hmm. But I took her with me. I didn't want her... I was being selfish in the sense I didn't want to miss her milestones. And I wanted to be an influence on her milestones. And I think to this day, if you were to ask her, she is such a perfect mix of Frank and myself. Because she does have that level of being unafraid, but yet also in the back of her mind, she hears my voice saying, "Did you think of this? Did you go there? Did you double check that?" So she's
the combination of the two.
Yeah. So I think that all has been a good thing for her.
Yeah, I mean, well, especially starting her own company right out of college, most people don't do, especially a company like that, which is more of a branding company in New York City, where obviously it's ripe for clients. Yeah. But I'm sure there's a ton of branding firms in New York City, especially
there are, and I think the birth of that came from a level of necessity that she had. She graduated in 2020 and everything was closed. And the sad thing, and for a lot of these kids that graduated in 2020, they had jobs lined up. They had things to go. And she was one of those kids, and everything shut down and disappeared. And she was just so ready to go and do. and she just said,
create her own job.
She did.
Yeah.
She says, what am I waiting for? I'm ready now. And so she took that time to cultivate and plan and create her mission statement and her business plan. And then she just shot it out of the cannon. And she's been very successful, but she's a go-getter. She doesn't hesitate to seek things out. And here she's in New York and she, and being the mom, I'm like, okay, honey, you have to be careful. Keep your head on a swivel. Always be careful. Don't do the subway, blah, blah, blah. And so she's like, Mom, I know. And here I'm worried about her. And like a year ago, I went up to visit her. And so I love jazz. And there's this one particular jazz place that we always go to. And the line wraps around. From Friday to Saturday, forget it. And that's with reservation. So we get there, we get out of the Uber, and I'm going towards the end of the line. She goes, Mom, where are you going? Where are you going? I'm like,
I got an in over here.
Go get in line. She goes, Mom, I don't stand in lines. And I'm like, excuse me? And so I follow her. And Allison, we get to the front door. The guy at the front door goes, hey, Laura, how you doing? Your table's ready. And I'm like, how did you do that?
But all the people are like, who is that? Who is that? Well, what star is that? Like, what actress?
I know. We go in, and I finally, I get my drink, and I'm looking at her. Okay, spill it. What did you do? She goes, Mom, the manager needed a connection for this, and I happened to have it in my Rolodex, and I gave it to him, and I made sure it happened. So I have an in for the rest of my life. I was like, okay, I'm good. So, I don't worry about her now as much. I mean, Mom will always worry, but she can manage herself. And she's doing great things.
Yes, she seems to be. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know her as well, obviously, as I know you and Frank.
Yeah.
But she seems to be doing
Yeah.
great things and really making it happen at a very young
age. She's
that
only
I think most
23.
people would kind of be astonished by.
Yeah, no, and I think part of that fearless attitude that she has, it comes from growing up around Frank and I, because both of us never took no for an answer from anybody. If somebody couldn't do something, we figured out a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
And,
B.
how many times both Frank and I were told, oh, no, that can't be done. You won't be allowed to do that. That's like telling
You
us.
don't know us.
That's like telling us, yes, you can do it, And so, and so she's grown up with that attitude and seeing the results from that type of attitude. And I think that's been her success, quite honestly, yeah.
Yeah, I suspect you're right. Because I think kids mirror what they see a lot of times.
I think so,
Because you
to a
see
certain
kids
point.
that either grew up maybe in a not so good household and kind of the challenges they have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe not mirroring them right exactly, but
they're still
it's
there.
more that
Yeah.
confidence level's
Yeah.
not there and things that may not be there, versus Laura seems to have the confidence and have the belief that she can do whatever.
Yeah. I think she has the belief that even if she doesn't understand something 100%, it's like, okay, I understand it 60%. By the end of the day, I'll understand it 100%. And she's not afraid to throw herself. Like, one of her best lines is, "I'll run to the fire, towards the fire." Like, she's not afraid to jump in and make it happen one way or another. And I've seen her do it. And I'm like, wait, how did you learn to do that? She goes, I learned it just now. And I'm like, okay, all right.
Yeah. Well,
Make it work.
yeah, exactly. So I know if any of our viewers watched the earlier podcast with Frank McKinney, you would see that he's very much the daredevil and very much the risk taker of the relationship.
He is.
And he references that a little bit. And I know he's done Badwater how many ever times, which is a 135-mile race across a desert, running, which to me, I'm like, I don't even want to run a marathon, let alone 135 miles across a desert. But, and I know you're a little bit more the opposite in some respects as far as less risk-taking.
It's funny, when it comes to business, I like to dot my I's and cross my T's. Not to say that he wouldn't, but he will jump and then everything happens and it happens perfectly. Right. I'm more the one in the back saying, okay, make sure he's caught when he jumps and make sure that doesn't burn his hair. And so coordinating that kind of stuff. Yes. And there is a part of me that just enjoys wholeheartedly watching him do these stunts because he's so happy when he's doing them. We've been together 30 plus years, and his joy is my greatest joy. Seeing him happy and smiling and saying, "Did you see that? That was awesome." I'm like, "Yes, I saw it." And would I be the one jumping off of this or doing that? Probably not. But I thoroughly enjoy watching him do what he loves to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that probably is one reason you guys are so good in
I think so.
Personal and business relationship, because you recognize those strengths and support each other's, I guess, passions.
Yeah. I'm not afraid to get out there, like with Badwater. For all his races, I was the head crew chief on it. And we were talking about flip-flops earlier, and the last race that he finished, he got to a certain point and just felt like his body was starting to shut down. And you're sleep deprived. You haven't slept in 2 days. And so, you start seeing things and hearing things. And so the one person that was crewing him at the time came over to the van and said to me, I think we're losing him. I'm like, oh no, we're only 22 miles away. He's finishing. And I had a pair of flip-flops on. And I ran out to him, and it was 120 degrees. Ugh. I had a baseball cap on, my flip-flops, and I took the water sprayer from the guy that was out there with them, took his belt with all the goos and everything, and I walked for 22 miles till I got him to the finish line in flip-flops, because he was, wow. And just distracting him. And I could talk to him in ways the other guys couldn't talk to him. Oh, you got this. No, we're almost there. Just keep, look. Oh, look at the flowers. Look over there. Yeah, okay. No. So tell me about this. And I distracted him for 22 miles, and wow. We made it to the finish line. So, but that to me was my greatest joy. Now, my nail tech, when she went to give me my pedicure the next week, she goes, how do you expect me to scrape all this black stuff? My shoes had melted along the way. It took like 2 months to get all that black stuff off the bottom of my feet. But to the point of, what you do to see your partner find their happiness is also at the end, to see him cross that finish line. Oh, I sat on the corner and cried. I was just so happy for him. Yeah, very happy.
Wow. I don't know if I would do that. Like walk 22 miles in 120 degree heat. Oh.
I started thinking of the alternative, bringing him home, not finishing a race. And I didn't like that. Okay. I was like, okay, I don't want to hear about it for 2 weeks that he didn't finish. He's going to finish.
Yeah, no, you don't want him unhappy, Frank, probably.
Yeah, no, I had an ulterior motive when I did that.
Understood.
Yeah.
So as we start to wrap up a little bit here, if there was one thing you could share with someone that wanted to start a business, maybe not about your industry, it could be specific to yours or not.
Right.
That maybe you learned either along the way, or maybe it's something you had, some kind of skill set or something you had learned that really helped you early on, that you recognized wow, this is helped me, or maybe something you didn't have that slowed your success, but you realized later, if I'd known that 2 years earlier, what would that be?
I would have to say, I think the most important thing early on to learn and practice it and refine it as your career continues is know your skill sets and the ones you're best at, and filter out the other things that you may not be as good at. Always keeping a strong eye on everything that's yours. Mm-hmm. But I think it's so important that you spread it out, because inevitably, if you're trying to do too much, burnout is going to come. And I've loved, and I still love with a passion what I do. 30 plus years later, I still love with a passion what I do. Mm-hmm. And I think that is because I haven't bogged myself down with HR issues. I haven't, I've got an accountant that takes care of things. And, of course, my eyes see everything. Everything has to come by my desk first. But I'm not physically implementing the day-to-day on certain things that I know would not put me in a good place to pick out fabrics or that type of thing. And then I'm also able to foster the relationships that I want on a job site. And I'm able to ask, the guys that are changing the security cameras, so how was your Father's Day? And I know their daughters and I know their kids, and, did so-and-so do this? How was their graduation? And that to me is very important, very important, because I saw my mentor do it. And I saw how her subs would do anything for her. And so many times on a job, you need somebody that stays late, finishes what they said they're going to do. Yeah. So that's what I would say is the most important.
Yeah, there were a couple of good gems there. Yeah. You didn't narrow it down to one. So there are a couple of good gems. Yeah. I think knowing like you said, your passions and your strengths. And then eventually, you may not be able to do this when you first start a company, but eventually farming the other pieces out. If you don't like to do, and, even if bookkeeping might be your thing, or accounting may be your thing too, along with and I'm not assuming you're not a CPA, then, get someone that does it full time eventually. So you're not having to take time away from, what you're good at and what your business is to make sure your books are in order and things like that. I think that was one critical piece that you said. And then also building those important relationships within your business, with your employees, your contractors, and knowing them personally as well as professionally.
Yep.
So
it goes a long way. It goes a long way when you make that phone call and just say, I need you to finish this job. And I know you're on a tight schedule, but I need you. And they're like, we'll get it done, Nilsa. And it's because you've created a relationship.
Yeah.
And you take care of them.
No
holidays, they're very happy to see me as I hand out the envelopes, So it's just, you take care of people and they will take care of you. And that's part of the reason why a lot of the subs that I have, I've had them for 10 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
Had them for a long time.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone had any questions for you, what's the best? I mean, I know maybe social media is not the best way to reach out.
Yeah.
What's the best way to reach out? I don't know if you have a website, don't have a website.
Yeah, I'm not personally
tied to your social media.
A social media type person, but I do go on from time to time. But the best thing is Nilsa at nilsadesign.com.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have questions or anything, just send it to there and we'll send you in the right direction to answer your questions.
Okay. So whether you're looking for design work yourself, because obviously it sounds like she works anywhere in the world, or maybe have a question about starting a interior design company.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
There.
Great. Thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Enjoyed having you and learning a little bit about the other side of Mr. McKinney. I mean, I think the balance is always important, and there's always someone great behind.
Oh, thanks.
I appreciate the person out in front a lot of times. So
thank you so much.
That really makes that person shine. So
thank you.
So thank you today for joining us on the Dream Plan Start Grow podcast. If you have any questions for myself, you can check out the website, dreamplanstartgrow.com, or email to success@dreamplanstartgrow.com. All of our podcasts are on there, the audio versions as well as the video versions, as well as some articles. And you can also book a half-hour complimentary consultation with me, just if you have questions or trying to figure out where that next step is for you. But thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Dream Plan Start Grow podcast with Allison Turner. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. Join the Dream Plan Start Grow community by following us on Facebook or Instagram @Dream Plan Start Grow. See you in the next episode.